We'll get started at about, probably not till about 3 minutes after, so.
Sounds great. I'll be here.
Yep, great. Taking up dancing in quarantine, Nathan?
You know, last night I watched I Am Patrick Swayze, the documentary. It's phenomenal. Patrick Swayze is my favorite actor by far. I'm not saying he's the best actor. I'm just saying that his movies, love him more than any other movies.
He's very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll be fully transparent. I'm not telling you to watch the documentary. I'm completely biased. So I don't know if it was a good documentary or not. I enjoyed it because I'm a big Patrick Swayze fan. $3.99 on Amazon Prime.
What's not to like? Yeah.
Nothing. Handsome. Glorious hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing dancer.
Yeah. Amazing dancer. Yeah.
I have to say I'm using the waiting room, and when I hover over your name when you're in the waiting room and it says admit or remove, I feel stressed because I don't want to accidentally remove you. But you know, I'm not always precise with my clicking. So far, so good.
I'm just gonna go with some more water, so I'm gonna
go for it. We're gonna get started at 3 minutes after per the new norm of Zoom meetings. Hi. Somebody still likes it.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Bev.
Hello.
We are almost all here. I'm waiting for one, I think, more person. All right. Okay, I have 2:03, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Here comes, of course, Erica. Great. And then I'm still waiting on Hannah Lar from CCRC to join us, but I think other than Hannah, everyone is here. Welcome. Welcome to our mentor orientation. So pleased to be spending part of Thursday afternoon with all of you. I am going to go ahead and get ready to share my screen. Okay, and now, what? Nope, nope, nope. I have been reading stuff about how to do Zoom meetings better. That may or may not be a good thing. You guys can decide after this is over. So let's see, I'm going to share my screen and it's going to be this one. And go. So that hopefully I can share, I can see the chat while I share my slides in slideshow view.
I will help you with the chat too, Jenny.
Thank you. I know you would. I just, you know, I'm excited to try something new with my PowerPoint. So thank you. Welcome new and returning mentors to our orientation for the 2020-2021 iteration of this program. Some of you have been with us from the beginning. Some of you are new. Some of you have been following us along with us in other initiatives, but happy to see all of you today. And I am Jenny Shanker, the Director of Research and Institutional Practice at the Michigan Center for Student Success. And I think I know all of you. So hope you have been finding some things to enjoy this summer and ready to kind of get back into the mentoring swing as we kick off the fall semester. Couple slides that we've been using at the beginning. This is our MCSS staff. Katie and Erica are on this call with us today. Precious, who is the coordinator of My Best, is on maternity leave, so she's home with her new little baby, but she will be back with us in a few weeks to resume the My Best work. We also have partners on our call today from CCRC, SOVA, and our partner Katie Kovacic from CCRI cannot join us today as she has been called away to an emergency, but will be joining us for other things later, and also our colleagues from the Student Success Center coaching program. Hopefully we'll be seeing them on some future calls and workshops. One of the things that we've been doing is asking you to rename yourselves to include your college or organization. That's helpful because maybe we don't all know each other or where we're from. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to do that. We're a small group today, so I'm not going to go over like how to use the chat or whether you need to raise your hands. If you want to say something, you can either use the chat box or you can just unmute yourself. We're a small enough group where you can go ahead and speak. So what I want to do today in this hour and a half that we have together, and we'll go as quickly as we can. So if we're finished early, I'll give you back some afternoon time. We're going to do some introductions. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about where we've been with the mentoring program and where we are going. And then I'm going to kick it over to some other presenters to talk about the components of the program. We'll talk a little bit about some upcoming opportunities. We will talk about what comes we're working on developing, what comes next immediately, and then we'll have some open time for Q&A. But again, if you have any questions while I'm going over any of this, please just unmute yourself and ask away. So let's start with introductions, and I'm going to just go through to have everyone say hi. And one new thing they have done this summer that is not work related. So I'll start. I'm Jenny. Hi, everybody. I have been actually, well, it's not really new, but one of the things that I've been doing that I think will characterize my non-work experiences this summer is I have been driving around to farm stands and discovering all of the things all of the artisanal food that I can purchase here in Southwest Michigan. I have found several places that grow only organic food. I have purchased sourdough bread, I have purchased jam, I have purchased honey, and it's been a really fun way for me to spend some of my non-work time this summer. So I'll go to Katie.
Sure. I think you know that I just returned from a vacation, and it was my family's first time exploring the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So we are Michigan transplants. We moved here about 7 years ago, and I had been to the UP for work, and you can laugh if you want, but I had flown there because I live down in Southeast Michigan. So it was just more productive to fly there for the 2 meetings I had for work. Although I did have one incident where I drove from northern Michigan across the bridge, and it was the first time I ever drove on the bridge, and it was probably the last time. I will not do it again. In this last trip, my husband drove, and I was in the back seat with my eyes closed, like just clenching my fists. It was very scary for me. However, we had a lovely rental. We stayed for a week, and we got to explore some of the beauty up north. And I always kind of laughed because my dad has a small cottage on an inland lake down here in southern Michigan. And I'm like, why do people drive 4 or 5 hours when there are all these lakes everywhere and you could just go 30 minutes away? But as soon as I arrived, I understood why people go up north. So I had a lovely time, and now we want to buy a camper so we can keep going back.
Great, thanks, Katie. I'll go to Sam. I'm just going to scroll down my my pictures here. So
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Sam Bazzi. I work at Henry Ford Community College, and I've been involved with the Right Math at the Right Time initiative since, I believe, 2017, and in particular, the statistics working group. One thing that I did this summer that's not work related, I didn't do any travel because of COVID-19. But I did some projects at home. I painted 2 rooms and I remodeled my garage and I put an epoxy floor. And I didn't have the confidence before that I could do such a work that would look very professional, but it did turn out to be professional. People were asking me, whom did you hire to do that job? So now I don't have an excuse, not to do things, just on my own, just if any other person. So I was very proud. It did take me some time, but to kill time while at home, just that was very useful.
That's terrific. Good thing you don't live near me because I'd call you to refinish my floors. So thanks, Sam.
He lives near me. You can come to my floor, Sam.
Sure. Here you go. I got jobs now.
Allison, you're next in my film strip presentation here.
Hi. All right. I'm Allison Kadlec, founding partner of SOVA, and I'm excited to be here with you. So this summer for me has been my first tiptoeing into foraging and sort of nature crafting. So I made my own kombucha for the first time and have eaten milkweed for the first time and made my very first apricot jam. So those are all under the same heading of me slowly becoming a freak in nature as a result of not seeing other humans or being in a restaurant for 6 months. So I'm starting to eat the things that I find in the trees behind me.
Okay, so that's one step beyond my exploration of farm stands. Ashley, you're next.
Hey everybody, I'm Ashley Van Heest. I work at Jackson College. We are in a fortunate spot. In my backyard, there is a really nice in-ground pool. And so I haven't had to really go far or do a whole lot to feel like we still got to have a restful and relaxful and fun summer. So this was the year that both of my kids decided they were just ready to jump in and literally jumping into the deep end, and it's taken us some years to get there. So we've just been having a lot of fun to hang out and spend an awful lot of time together here at home, but it's been good.
Thank you. Bev, you are up.
Hi, guys. I'm having some difficulty sometimes with my video, so please forgive me. I'm COVID bound today. I'm on vacation, believe it or not. But I'm Beverly Sambro from Oakland Community College. I am the Dean of College Readiness, and I love outdoors, but I don't like those little bitty animals that be crawling around. And so I recently moved about 5 years ago. And last week, I did some exploring, and we have a nature nature lake near me. In the Farmington Hills, Southfield area, I have found myself, because I love water and it's not close, they have a lake in walking distance of me that I had no idea. So every day after I'm done, before it gets dark, I take a walk, and it has been the most serene and comfortable peace of mind ever. So that's all I've been doing, because the 10 and 12 hours, of course, have been overwhelming, and I'm sure all of us have those hours. But I have explored that piece, and it is simply beautiful. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm feeling really good about that.
Terrific. How fun to find a lake you didn't know about.
Rare. In walking distance.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Lisa, you are up next. You need to unmute yourself. There you go.
I'm more used to WebEx than Zoom, so trying to find where things are takes me a little bit, but you can hear me now, right?
Yes, Deb can.
So I'm Lisa Ninkirk, and I'm from Lansing Community College. And one thing that has been different this summer that is not work related is that my two nieces and I, one who's 18 and the other's 19, have spent more time together, and they are suddenly interested in family history. So they were looking at some correspondence that I have from 100 years ago of my grandparents' correspondence as they were courting. And though my two nieces have decided that it needs to be typed up and put into a modern day scrapbook and things. So it's been nice to be busy with family about family things.
Very neat. Wow, this is this is a wonderful icebreaker. It's the best one all summer, I think. Sean, you are up next.
Hi, I'm Sean Newmiller. I am English faculty and chair of English and Transitional Reading and Writing at Lake Michigan College. And this summer, my partner and I bought a cargo van that we are converting into a camper. So that's been my weird COVID summer adventure.
Cool. Sheila.
Hi everyone, I'm Sheila Jones from GRCC, where I'm Dean of Instructional Support. I think the biggest thing I checked off my list this summer was I finally finished the Hamilton biography that was what became the musical, but the 800-page biography that was basically on my nightstand for about 4 years. I finally finished, so everything else is good after that. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Hi everyone.
Erica, you are next.
Hi everyone. Jenny, this is a great icebreaker. Nice job. And I'm so glad. I was afraid you were going to call on me second and I had nothing to say. So I started looking back through my calendar to see if I did anything interesting. Pretty limited. But I tortured my kids and signed them up for a bunch of summer academic programs. And my daughter took a digital storytelling class. So I was thinking about Lisa and Sean. And so we spent some time this summer downloading some really cool apps that she can write graphic novels and that kind of thing. So that's super fun for a 9-year-old girl who's stuck in the house to get to write her own books. So I got into that a little bit.
Very cool. Shanna.
Shauna. Okay, so I spent most of my summer working. So I'm trying to think. I bought a car that I have been saving up for years. When I was a little girl, I had a little Matchbox Camaro that I used to carry around in my pocket. And so I finally went and got it because the interest rates were so low. But because I haven't had time to really go play with it much. I just wake up in the morning and look in the driveway at it, but that's cool with me. And I went on a bike ride or two with my kids. So that was kind of fun, but they ride so fast. So I don't know how fun it was for them. They kept stopping like, where's mommy? But yeah, that's about what I could think of that was not work related, because I'm also trying to work on that dissertation. So not much free time. But I did squeeze those two things in. So yeah.
What color is the Camaro? Can I ask? What color is the Camaro?
It's crimson red.
Woohoo, of course.
Yes, of course. That is sweet. That is sweet.
Yes. So yeah, I was really happy about it because I am very cheap. And so I wanted it to have a normal size car note. And so my friends were laughing at me because I wouldn't get it until I had a certain down payment. And they're like, nobody does that. I said, people do it. So yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Cool. Congratulations. Jennifer.
Well, as you can see, I have spent a good deal of my summer with the 5- and 7-year-old grandkids. And we've been doing a lot of fun things, a lot of scooter riding in parks and breaking up fights, which I just had to do. But yeah, mostly babysitting and just having a good time with 2 little guys.
Fantastic. Thank you. Lewis, you are up.
Good afternoon, everybody. So this summer, one thing that I've made an effort to do more of is connect with family members. So something that I do consistently is run. So during my warm-ups, I use that time to reach out to family members and just check on people. And I've found out a lot about people that I did not want to know, but I've also found out a lot of good things. So it's really interesting, and a lot of times people are just really appreciative to hear from you. So that motivates me a little bit more for my run as well. So
Great, thank you. Nathan.
So I, COVID specifically related, my wife went back to work full time during the pandemic. So, and in such, she was quarantined due to contact tracing. And some of you know, I have 3 little girls, 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I tried to balance for an entire week work with her being quarantined upstairs, and we pretended like she was gone. So the girls couldn't see her. So it was myself and the 3 little ladies for an entire week, but it was great. And because of that, we have like special daddy-daughter days now. And for those of you who know, I live close to Binder Park Zoo. So every other Saturday, we do like a daddy-daughter thing, and we just go, us 3, to the zoo. So even though it was tough for that week, I think a lot of great things have been coming from this, at least for me. Getting to be able to spend more time with my kids has been tremendous. So
Great, thank you. Wow, that's quite the challenge, yeah. I think Hannah.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Hannah Lar from CCRC. I guess I've been trying to finish up some projects. Like I have a tendency to start like knitting projects and then I don't finish them. But I finished a couple so far this summer. I finished this pillow that says home in honor of being home. I have another one that says stay. So when you put them together, they say stay home. I finished another blanket and I have another one in the works. So that's been kind of fun to check things off the list.
Terrific. Wow, what interesting summers we've all had, and so many kind of unexpected occurrences and pleasures and activities. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. So let's go ahead and I want to welcome you again to all the mentoring. I want to all of you to our mentoring network. And I want to just kind of jump in and talk a little bit about where we have been. We started this program kind of in response to some invitations from Jobs for the Future and the Student Success Center Network. They kind of started at the same time a coaching training program in 2018, at the same time that they launched an RFP for a grant for states to start or strengthen a coaching program that they had. So basically we've kind of plunged into this in late 2018 with 3 of our coaches taking the coaching training in Chicago, 2 different meetings in Chicago, which were really positive, and maybe we'll hear a little bit more about what those mentors learned while they were there. And then we learned at the same time that we were awarded this grant, and so we needed to scale up the program. Started with the 3 that we had. We launched a network in winter 2019, recruited some additional mentors, and then we just recently learned that we were invited to be part of the second round of the coaching grant with JFF, the Student Success Center Network Coaching Grant. And so we will be, which kind of overlaps with this one that we're in the middle, that we're not quite done with, but this one will go on for another 2 years and take us through the summer of 2022. So it's been great. We've had it's great to have such positive feedback from our funders and from the Student Success Center Network. And so we're really excited to take on more of this work. More about where we've been, we have a few things. Oh, and I want to pause and say, if you're having trouble with maintaining your video, I often have to get off video and, because of my bandwidth here in my house. So if you have to get off video, that is no problem at all. Or if you have to break up fights amongst grandkids or other small humans or animals in your homes. But our accomplishments so far, I think, looking at, we did recruit 9 volunteer mentors early in 2019. Some of them, and I recently did a round, some of them are continuing with us. Some of them have moved on due to other responsibilities, but we had a good and enthusiastic response. We spent time talking with this group. We developed a mentor resource site on Canvas, which you may have recently received an invitation to from me. And if not, I will be sending a round of those again, where we have located some of the resources that we have identified from other states, some things we've developed ourselves, some message and discussion boards, and we need to talk a little bit more about how to use that more effectively, but it does exist. Our lead mentors, as I mentioned, did complete a year of online in-person training. So there were some training modules and there were 2 meetings in Chicago, and Nathan, Paige, and Beverly completed sometime before, in the before time, everybody, all 3 of them did complete all of those modules and were certified to be national mentors. And so those are our project leads at the moment. We had we did have 1 request for a consultation from one of our study circle colleges, and our mentors, Nathan and Lindsay, who's going to be on the call tomorrow, did work with Liz Orbetz there to help her make some plans and kind of assess her situation. So we have had 1 kind of college engagement. And then we've also had our mentors involved in our Guided Pathways Institutes 5 and 6, where they shared information and helped facilitate some conversation at the My Best virtual kickoff. And then also as part of the Faculty Connections roundtables that we did in May, from May to mid-July. So we have had mentors involved in some of our stuff, and we're continuing to kind of build that. One of the things that we want to do is build visibility in a variety of ways for our mentors. And so we're going to be continuing with some of this kind of involvement in different convenings, mostly virtual now. We did experience some challenges in terms of getting this off the ground. We're not the only state who had some of these challenges, but these were ones that I think were kind of unique to Michigan. One is that which is, I think everybody had this coaching idea, this idea that coaching is the way that we're going to kind of expand and scale and strengthen implementation of various initiatives, is kind of happening in real time as we are kind of trying to develop our network at the same time that resources are in development from various national entities, including Achieving the Dream, CCRI, there's a lot of good stuff coming from CCRC. And so kind of having to, and then SOVA, we worked with SOVA to develop some materials, but then finally I told Allison, I said, we need to stop developing our own materials because everyone is developing materials. We need to shift our focus to curating the materials that are out there. So that's been, kind of something to keep up with. We're developing a model that works for Michigan. There's a lot of kind of preconceived notions about what a coach is, what is coaching. Colleges have received coaching through Achieving the Dream. People, there's soccer coaches and gymnastics coaches, and what is a coach? We went ahead and decided that we were going to call our team mentors. kind of went along with the mentor circle, study circle division for the Guided Pathways Institute, but it also kind of, it suggested kind of some leadership, but also from a peer perspective, that, you know, you could be mentored. Anybody could be a mentor. Anybody could be a mentee. It's kind of, you know, our idea is how do we build this network where we're peer-to-peer sharing what we're learning with each other. So we're working on that. We launched this, and the way that it was kind of presented to us, and then we turned around and launched it as a new component of an existing initiative. The idea was that coaching was supposed to be focused on guided pathways, and so we were going to, you know, we were going to have coaches that were going to work with the study circle colleges. That, you know, it was difficult for people to take that in as we were approaching sort of the final year of a 3-year cycle of implementation. And so we felt like we didn't get as much uptake on that with the guided pathways work as we wanted to. So that was kind of a challenge. We discovered that, you know, colleges don't do optional really. So we say, hey, you could have a mentor, and they said, hey, we're really busy, as you might feel on your own campuses. So finally, yeah, this is time, space, and energy for both the mentors and the potential mentees that colleges don't do optional. And then of course, right at the time that we thought we were going to really ramp this up and kind of push it out into the MyBest and then, you know, back into the final year of Guided Pathways, we were hit with the pandemic, which kind of, you know, set everybody back on their heels. So we sort of decided to take time to slow down and refresh. It's supposed to be a GIF, but I couldn't figure out how to make the GIF work in the PowerPoint. So you could just imagine her tapping her mouse. So what we've done is put together a new description of the network and mentors and a kind of the beginning of a theory of change. And I'm not going to read this to you. I will let you read it to yourself. I'll pause for a moment actually and be quiet while you read it. All right. I don't know how fast you read, but I want to just highlight the bullet points actually, which these are the things that we kind of expect and hope that mentors will do: provide support during institutes and workshops, engage with our virtual network building conversations on social media, hopefully work with peers at individual colleges on shorter term engagements, focused on the initiatives that they're participating in, and assist us in gathering formative implementation data for, from the scale of adoption assessments that are coming up. And we'll talk more about all of these things as we go on through the slides. But I do want to pause and see if there's any questions right now, and feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. Anybody, is this all clear so far? Okay, seeing thumbs up from Nathan. Not seeing anybody frantically signaling that they want to speak. So I'll go ahead and forge ahead. So what we've done in our refresh is I asked all of you to fill out a survey that indicated some interests and opportunities. And this is where, you know, this is kind of a mock-up of the spreadsheet that I have that's getting longer and longer because I keep adding more things to the right-hand columns that people say that they want to do. But people have, you know, you can be a mentor that is focused on one of our initiatives like Guided Pathways, MyBest, My Start to Finish. You can be a mentor who is kind of focused on transfer, right math at the right time. If you are a faculty or an academic administrator, you might be interested in kind of the My Faculty Lead work. or general change management, or an upcoming focus that we're really trying to get more explicitly into everything that we do at the center, which is this idea of equity, leadership for equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you see that some of these things are expressed in the form of hashtags, and that is not an accident, because one of the things that we really are focused on is our work with elevating our presence on social media, specifically using Twitter. We're making Twitter great again. No, that's not a good thing to say, sorry. We're trying to take back Twitter from the bad people who have made it not a great place to be, and we are making it a great place to be. And we're gonna talk more about that. In fact, right now, Katie, would you like to take it away?
Yes. And I'm not screen sharing. You're gonna do the slides, yes?
Yes, I'm gonna do the slides and then you'll tell me when you want to screen share.
Okay. All right, cool beans. So some of you guys have already seen some of our efforts on Twitter because you participated in some of our tweeter activities. Sometimes Jenny introduces me as the tweeter in chief, and I sort of missed that today. I'm putting that on my resume as the MCSS tweeter in chief. This actually comes out of my experience in graduate school, this idea of, and it's sort of appropriately timed with social distancing efforts related to the pandemic, which I did not plan on, but here we are. We have been talking for a while about how to engage more deeply with faculty or other student success champions across the state of Michigan. And I had the opportunity to read a book called New Power, which talks all about how technology and globalization have sort of changed participatory norms around leadership and sort of creating messages and norms related to group involvement in leadership. And so we took some of those ideas, and I had to write up a paper for a class that used the MCSS as sort of my case study, if you will. But the good news is we were able to take some things out of that we are actually doing now, including this Twitter campaign. Because our hope is that since we can't have all of our fun meetings and give everybody free cookies and lunch and so on as we used to do to try to engage with folks in that regard, we can meet people where they are in digital spaces. And I was a very reluctant Twitter user. For me, mostly it like fed into my social insecurities, and I was like, I can't put anything out into the public universe. I don't know if that sounds right. I don't know how to use a hashtag. But 6 months later, or a couple years later, I guess, since I've been using it for grad school as well, I am a bit of a Twitter believer, and I've had some really positive interactions with authors of books, researchers whose research I've been interested in studying, and so on. So all of that is a long story to say that we now came on and decided to do a little bit more work with our Twitter handle. So I'll let Jenny keep going, but you can see there is a link there, and we are going to share these slides with you all, so you'll be able to get to the links that we have hyperlinked throughout. If you are also a reluctant Twitter user or not sure about how it works, that link that was on the previous slide actually has a short video that shows me clicking around and doing some of the basic functions in Twitter. And we wanted to put that out there because we are realizing that a lot of people are not familiar with this platform. And so it's a nice opportunity, if you're not familiar with it, to go ahead and watch somebody else using it and get a feel for what it looks like. But you can see here we have 3 discrete goals for what we're calling our birds of a feather Twitter engagement efforts. One is, I mean, they're pretty clear goals. Increase our followership. For a while, we did an audit. We worked with the social media company who did an audit of our followership, and the folks that followed us were mostly people like us, and that's fine. We like people like us, but we really like people like you guys who are out on the ground doing the work, working with students directly. And so that really is our primary goal, is to increase our followership of people like you all and get you guys talking to each other, sharing information and resources with one another. And that's number 2, increasing that engagement, wanting to create kind of a robust digital learning community for information sharing. Here and beyond, we have had some great experiences in our tweet chats, hearing from people in other parts of the country with some really salient information that they're sharing. And then number 3, I guess this was a goal to increase our visibility, but I don't know that we realized how good that would work. We have had the opportunity to really showcase what you all have done through our coordinated efforts through the center. And it's caught the attention of funders, it's caught the attention of other national entities who are really excited to see the work that you all are doing in Michigan. And so for us, this has become a wonderful platform for sharing your success, which is really important to us as well. So those are the 3 discrete goals behind our efforts. And here's what we're looking for from you all as mentors. Yes, we want you to get onto Twitter. Now, we cannot require it. We won't force it of you, although I was graded in graduate school on my ability to be on and engage with scholars on Twitter. But we would like to see you there if you're willing to take this leap with us. You don't have to have a fancy profile. You don't have to do anything really too technologically advanced. But if you are willing to put a profile up, it'd be great if you put a picture on. I had to harangue Erica a little bit about a picture for a while, but she finally does have a lovely photo of herself. For a little while, she had the MCSS logo up, and I had to admonish her, you cannot use that logo. That's what we use for our business profile. I need your face. I need your face. So I'd love to see your faces on your profile. If you need any support in kind of getting acclimated to Twitter, please reach out. I have done some Zoom sessions where I've literally helped people put a Twitter profile together and then helped you figure out kind of how to connect with us and how to use hashtags and all that kind of stuff. And I'm very happy to do that. It's actually kind of fun. And it's easier if you're feeling a little insecure about it like I was, if you have somebody kind of gotten your back, if you will, and supporting you through it. So after you get a profile, or if you already have one, we would love to see you following us. You actually have to go find us at MCCA CSS and click the follow button if you haven't already. Several of you already do follow us, and we follow you back. And then we would like to see you engaging with our posts. So we have been tweeting almost every day, not always every day, but almost every day. And we're sharing research, we're sharing reports, just warm fuzzy stories, policy updates, stuff like that. And we're using hashtags. If you're not familiar with how social media works, a hashtag helps to aggregate things. And in a minute, if I have time, I will do a quick screen share to show you why we like the hashtags, because you can actually use the hashtags even if you decide not to get a profile. You can still go in and see what we're posting without having a Twitter profile. So I've listed for you the hashtags that we want to be using to kind of go with all of our initiatives. We use MI Student Success or My Student Success most frequently. That's what we call our signature hashtag. So if you're trying to post something or engage with something that has to do with the center, that hashtag you would almost always be using. You would probably only use the other ones if your content related to one of those initiatives or one of those topics. And then we would also love to see you helping us both participating in and then helping to promote our Twitter activities. This has been a grand experiment, and this summer we decided to host these tweet chats, which were very stressful at first, but turned into a lot of fun. And we have our last one of the summer next week, and we would really, really like to see you guys participate in that if you are on Twitter. So the one next week, we have had 2 so far this summer. The first one was about pathways, and it was about guided pathways, math pathways, developmental education pathways, and transfer pathways. So that was a lot to pack into one lunchtime tweet hour. The second one was about our My Best project, which focuses on financial stability among community college students. And so that one had a bit of a different flair, different flavor, and it was about providing resources, mental health supports, and so on to students in the pandemic and beyond. And then this one next week is all about faculty. So some of you will have a lot to say about the questions that we're asking. And we are also using this as sort of the crowning exercise from the faculty digital roundtable meetings that we've held all summer, where we've had faculty from various disciplines discussing how they got online so quickly in the spring, and then how can they deliver content that is typically delivered in person online, and just really sharing with one another what their challenges and opportunities have been. Those have been very fruitful. We've heard a lot of positive feedback from faculty, and so we're hoping to be able to take that into the Twitter space and keep those conversations going. So the last slide then tells you what else we have coming. If you can come next week, that is super. The other reason we would really like to see you next week is if you haven't participated in one of our tweet chats, it's a great way to get ready for our Student Success Summit tweeting. And again, I know, right? Jazz hands. We would really love to see any of you who are on Twitter helping us elevate the Success Summit, which will be happening virtually, using our hashtag for the event, which is up on the screen. And then also attending a session that we're having called Real Values in a Virtual World, where we will have several community college leaders from Michigan and hopefully outside of Michigan as well, talking about how they're using virtual space, both social media and other tools like podcasting and video casting, to spread their message, especially in a time of social distancing. So we're going to have a couple folks doing some TED Talks on resources and tools that they've been using, and then we're basically going to have a supported tweet chat. And we would really like to see all of you in a Zoom room with us while we have our tweet chat with those leaders who will be featured presenters during that session on Friday, September 18th from 3 to 5:30 p.m. And as you can see, we are seeking mentor tweet hosts. So we are actually interested in having some of you guys as mentors taking over our Twitter handle if and when you become comfortable with that. And if you're not comfortable with that, you could always do it from your own handle as well and just use our tags or tag us, use our hashtags, excuse me, or tag us in your content. We can work all of that out later logistically. And then looking forward even further, we want to keep doing these tweet chats. We've really enjoyed them. Our national partners have enjoyed engaging with our college personnel through these tweet chats as well. And we are going to focus 2 of them in the fall on MCSS equity, which Bev Stanbro helped us come up with that hashtag when we participated together in a tweet chat all about equity that CCRI hosted over the summer. And I really love it. I want to get t-shirts made. Or perhaps temporary tattoos, which we could all wear while we're like Zooming together. That would be really fun. And so we're going to give you more detail about those that are coming up, but we will have 2 tweet chats focused on topics around equity in the fall. And then we would like to do more of those. Again, in the winter months, we aren't going anywhere for a while because of the pandemic, but also in Michigan, we don't travel much between November to March because of snow and ice. So this is another great way to engage with folks. And we have a rich bench, if you will, in Michigan of faculty researchers who study community colleges, and we're really hoping to put together a tweet chat with some of those folks to hear about their current research and engage with them and kind of push that practitioner researcher line together, if you will. And then we have some new projects coming forward that will be focused on career tech education as well as liberal arts. So we might be able to do some tweeting around that. And then I'm open to any suggestions and ideas that some of you have, because some of you are more tweety than me even, which is fun to watch on Twitter as well. Any questions or anything from my colleagues that you'd like to share about our Twitter efforts?
No, other than thanking you for being our tweeter in chief, as always.
Yeah, no problem. It has been fun. And we have upped our followers by almost 200 persons since April. So we have really felt good about that. And again, it's mostly people like you all that we're looking to engage with, people on the ground at the colleges. And that seems to be where we're getting more followership. So that has been successful from that perspective. Jenny, I know we talked about maybe doing some live demo, but I'm not sure that we have time for that.
I think maybe we might need to move on, but
no problem.
We'll live demo another time.
That sounds fine. Thanks for
right.
indulging me, guys, and I hope to see you out in the Twitterverse.
Thanks, Katie. So shifting from the Twitterverse back to the kind of idea of guided pathways, part of the work that we are doing as we kind of tee up the next phase of our work, and some of it you saw in Katie's introduction from the Twitter, is we're building on the lessons that we've learned from the past 6 years in developing guided pathways, which we've been really fortunate to have a lot of colleges who have been very involved and to be involved with the national partners who are implementing this really important and comprehensive reform of the Guided Pathways Institute. And so everything that we're doing is kind of linked to guided pathways in one way or another. And you can see here are the initiatives that we are involved in right now at MCSS, or that are coming up, and some of them don't have logos yet, so we haven't put them on here yet. But you can see what I've done is, and if you were at the Guided Pathways Institute, you've seen this before, but we are lining them up underneath the kind of the aspects of guided pathways, the aspects of the practice areas of guided pathways. And you can see how each one maybe fits in more than one of these areas. But you can also see at the bottom here, I want to point out the Twitter campaign that Katie just described, and our work with the Voluntary Framework of Accountability to collect and analyze data, and then the mentoring program are kind of cross-cutting. They cut across all at the aspects of guided pathways, and that's kind of what I wanted you to see here. But that's how we're visioning this mentoring work, is kind of reaching out across all of the areas of the guided pathways. So they're all related. All of these initiatives are related. And so we have created SOA for all the things, Scale of Adoption Assessment for all the things. There's the Guided Pathways SOA for Guided Pathways, which our colleges have already done several times. You probably have been involved in some aspect of this. We've developed a developmental education SOA for the MI Start to Finish initiative that's focused on strengthening co-requisite remediation, helping more students finish their first college level math and English class within a year of enrollment. And then there's a financial stability SOA for the My Best initiative, which colleges have been working on filling out. So we have 3 different now scale of adoptions that are going to happen kind of in the same time period this fall. What we want to do is have mentors involved in these SOA processes, and by helping to assist with the validation calls. So if you've done a SOA, you know, and if not, I'll tell you that first thing you do is you fill out kind of a worksheet that indicates where you are in various practice areas. And then we schedule a call with the team from the college, with 1 or more individuals, and then we'll have a team with me or with Erica or perhaps with Precious, who will, and a mentor who will call the college and kind of follow up. And Hannah's going to talk a little bit about those in a minute. We want you to help us to provide feedback on the reports we develop based on this, contribute to potential publications and blog posts based on the SOA processes, and to help us to identify opportunities for follow-up connections and consultation with the colleges. So I want to turn it over to Hannah quickly, because I know she has to get off in a moment, to talk a little bit about the basics for what it means to do a validation call.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. All right, so I'm going to go over a couple of basics. I think a lot of these lessons apply to probably all of the versions of the SOA that you're doing. Obviously, I'm more familiar with the Guided Pathways Scale of Adoption Assessment, so some of these might be a little more specific to that, but I think broadly, a lot of these lessons will still apply. So I kind of chunk this out into like things to do before a call, things to consider for when you're actually doing the call, and things for to think about after you're done with the call. So, you know, before the call, it's really, really helpful to do some prep work before the calls. If you're doing a scale of adoption assessment, or even like the DevEd scale of adoption assessment, reviewing what they wrote, and if you have a previous version of the scale of adoption they did in the past, it's really useful to compare those two, and then to check out things like their website. And the point of that is to kind of look at a bunch of different data sources. You know, on the scale of adoption for Guided Pathways, if they're saying that like they have implemented meta majors at scale, you know, to affect different parts of the college and the student experience, and they've implemented things like program maps at scale, I always then go to a website and see, can I find them? How easy are they to find? And do those things sort of align? Like, granted, the website is pretty limited in what it can tell you. It doesn't really tell you much about how the meta majors, for example, are used, like if they're used in onboarding, if they're used for orientation and things like that. But it can give you a broad sense of just, are they present? Are they there? And then for the program maps, obviously it's not going to tell you much about how they're used to help students make educational plans, but just being able to find them easily can give you some insight into where the college is. Doing that sort of work is also helpful for just noting kind of in advance which of the ratings might seem a little off to you, or ones that you want to definitely check in during the calls. And so you can look at like the previous SOA, if they were like not systematic on something and now they're at scale. you know, that's kind of maybe a good place to check in, especially if you can't find evidence of it on the website. Usually I check things like meta majors, like I said, program maps. I also look at course catalogs, and this kind of goes to the, like if you're thinking about DevEd, if a college says they're at scale in implementing, you know, co-rec math, I usually go to their catalog and can look to see if I can find any DevEd math courses. Now, most colleges, the numbers are different, but if there's anything that's like MATH 001, you know, less than 100 level, that's a good hint that it's a DevEd course, which just, you know, it's good to be able to raise these questions during a call. You know, sometimes there's like lingering artifacts of like old DevEd courses, but it's useful just to be able to bring those things up. During the call then, one of the things we've changed is, you know, if any of you have done these with us in the past at CCRC or with Jenny, like in the past, we really just walked through every practice and we talked about that practice, and then we talked about the rating for that practice. But as colleges have gotten farther along in their guided pathways work, what we typically do now is we sort of zoom out a little bit and talk about like a practice area as a whole. We don't necessarily touch on each rating as we go along, especially if like they look like they're fine. We tend to just touch on the ones where we might want to talk about if it's a good representation of what the college is doing. So that's kind of this first bullet, like getting to the end of a practice area, like area 1, and then going back and saying like, yep, these ratings look good to me, or I want to just ask you about this one. It's sort of, it helps the flow of the call a little bit and makes it more about, it gives you more opportunity to really learn about what the college is doing without kind of being interrupted by talking about, you know, the ratings. If you do want to suggest a new rating for the call, it's really, really important to clearly explain why you think it needs to be different. So giving a couple reasons is usually helpful. You know, we get a lot, oftentimes there's a difference between like something being available to every student being at scale, or something that is actually like every student, it's kind of built into the new student experience that they are experiencing, that every student kind of goes through. Those are two differences in terms of like when you think about at scale, like something that is available to everyone or something that everyone does experience. So those are kind of the probing questions that you can ask to try to get a sense of those things. Like, and you know, sometimes there is resistance to changing a rating, and you know, we work with a little like 120-ish colleges right now, and we have a good sense of what those colleges are doing, but we don't know all the dynamics about what's going on in a college. And so sometimes there's things going on that we don't understand. Sometimes there's some internal politics. Sometimes there might be some resistance to changing a rating. Sometimes it's the people on the call who are coming from like one part of a college, and you know, we want to change a rating on a different, like something that maybe they're not really familiar with. So like if, you know, we're talking about advising and there's no advisors on the call, like they might be resistant to changing ratings on advising because someone from advising did that rating. So it's just, there's always things going on there. And ultimately what I typically do and what we do at CCRC is like, if we think a rating doesn't quite match what the college is doing, we make a suggestion for an alternative one, we explain why, and then we put it in their hands. And about 90% of the time, if we've made our case well, they will, you know, usually agree with us. But every once in a while, there's some resistance that, you know, we're just not totally sure what's going on. And if there is that resistance, we just kind of let it go, and maybe just make a note to ourselves about, you know, what we've observed. The next bullet here, this issue of scale and quality, this is where like probing questions, trying to really get a sense of what's going on at a college is super important, because, you know, scale, there's a number of different definitions of scale. Oftentimes we think of as scale, and the way we've kind of defined it to this point is that scale is about all students in all programs of study. And there, again, you get into that conversation I mentioned before. It's like, well, is this just available to everyone? Is it something that everyone actually experiences? And those are big differences. But then there's also the quality. Like, is it at scale? with quality? Like, has this really changed practice in a way that it's then changing the student experience? So these are the difficult questions to ask, trying to get a sense of like quality. You know, when you think about program maps, like, is it, you know, what does the program map look like? But then more importantly, like, how is it actually being used by people at the college? And in making the program maps, did program faculty, like, were they thinking about like, what is it that we want students in our program to know, be able to do? Do program maps include experiential learning opportunities, things like that? You know, when you're thinking about meta majors, like, is it just a new organizational structure at the college, or are they actually being used to help students explore their interests, strengths, and opportunities, to make initial program selection? You know, things like that, I think, start to get at quality. But those questions are harder to ask, but it's sort of thinking beyond just like the number of students affected to like, how has this changed the student experience? And then these aren't in the scale of adoption assessment, but sometimes some big picture questions can really be helpful. Lately, we've been asking colleges to kind of step back and just tell us, like, when you think about onboarding students into a program of study, like, what is the biggest change that's resulted from your guided pathways work, and how has this changed, again, the student experience? And this provides, you know, people on the call to really step back and think about, like, yeah, what is the biggest change we've made, and how has this really changed things for students? And it's just a nice way to kind of, you know, encourage them to think about these big changes. And in some ways it's a positive, it can be positive to like step back and think about like, yeah, we have done these major changes, and it gets you out of like the weeds of like this practice and that practice and this practice, but like how do they all work together to really to change things? So
and that's really important. I just want to jump in because part of, you know, one of the reasons we do the scale of adoptions is not only so we can find out what's going on at the colleges, but also so that we can prod them to reflect for themselves on what has changed and what hasn't changed, or where, you know, where they are. So I think that's those big picture questions are really important. Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, you know, if you're doing a bunch of scale of adoption assessments this fall, like trying to make the connections between the DevEd work, the guided pathways work, teaching and learning work. You know, it's not that like everything is guided pathways, but, you know, how are we making the connections between these things, and just, you know, trying to, you know, understand maybe what else is going on at the college, other challenges that they're having, and how they're addressing those challenges. So I recommend adding in a couple of those. Maybe you can develop a couple of Michigan specific ones there. And then post call, you know, this is, as someone who has written a bunch of reports after doing like a number of calls in a state or in a project, like you get to the end and you're like, oh my God, I have like 100 pages of notes about all these colleges and everything is blurred together. So what we typically do is we try to jot down some key notes after each call. That's like, you know, what was like, what was this college like, what were the highlights from this college? What were the areas where they really have made some progress? What were some areas where they seem to be struggling? It can just be like a couple things, but just jotting those notes down right after the call. And I assume Jenny will probably be writing the report will really help her later. So I think, you know, trying to organize that, and just it can take like 5 minutes after a call, or if there's like 2 people on a call, doing like a 5-minute debrief as soon as the college gets off the call can be really helpful. And then asking them like what they want, like where do they see themselves going? What are they focusing on right now, and where can they use some help? So and just jotting that down, because, you know, you'll see similar requests in areas where the colleges are working across all the colleges that you're interviewing, and just seeing how many colleges ask for what type of thing can be really helpful later on. So those are my main tips. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer any now or later.
Hoping to actually to get an opportunity to schedule a little bit more dedicated time when, once we kind of get the mentors assigned to who's going to call on what adoption and things like that, and exactly how we're going to do that. But I did want you all to get an idea of the big picture of what it's like to do the calls and what kinds of things to watch for. So thank you, Hannah. I appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for Hannah? I know she needs to go.
I have a couple minutes. I can.
Okay. Anybody? I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Hey, Jenny, I was wondering, I thought when you guys were talking about just having a general conversation with the colleges, I thought that was really helpful. And maybe this is a question for another day, but since these are also coaches, they're kind of doing the scale of adoption, but then, where do you build in those coaching opportunities? Or do you think, I've done these calls and I know the time gets away from you on them. And so just wondering if you have any advice about like how you would follow up with colleges if there's a coaching opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think these calls are it is hard to get through everything at the call. One thing we started doing at just the top of the call is asking the colleges like where they really focused in since the last time we talked to them, because you don't really want to talk, it's not super helpful to talk about something where they really haven't spent much time focusing on the last. So maybe you could start the call by asking them where have you really spent a lot of time working in the last year and a half? What is an area you really haven't gotten to yet? And maybe is there an area you haven't gotten to yet that you also you haven't gotten to maybe because you're not quite sure where you want to go or how you want to do it, as opposed to we kind of know what we want to do, but we just haven't gotten there yet. And sort of framing it at the beginning, because then you can target the call a little bit in terms of talking to them about where they have made the most progress, and then talking about well, you haven't, and then is it because you just haven't gotten there yet,
right.
or
good idea.
We're sort of stumped on that.
And you can see that when they fill out the form, you can maybe get an idea, because there's the column that says what's next, what's your plan.
Yep.
Maybe that will give you a chance when you're reviewing it before to zero in on those. We still need to figure out exactly how we're going to do these calls and parse them out. So if you are listening to this and you're not familiar with the scale of adoption assessment, you never did it at your college, I'm not going to throw you in the deep end to do the calls by yourself. We do have, our team here who will work with people. And then there are some of you who I think probably have Jackson, who have probably participated in so many calls with CCRC and with us that you may be ready to jump in and conduct the calls by yourself. So there'll be a range of engagement with this that don't be nervous that we're throwing you in the deep end. All right. So thank you, Hannah, and we're gonna move on then to the next. This is the general timelines for the scale of adoption. So the colleges have mostly filled out the DevEd SOA. I'm still waiting on some from a few people. The financial stability SOA, I need to get with Precious when she comes back to see. I think most people have filled them out, but we haven't completed the calls. And then the guided pathways SOA we kicked off in July, and we're going to try to finish those calls through November 13th. So I will be sending you some sign up Genius links for these, so that when, because what I do is kind of map out sometimes that people can do the calls, and then I'll use those links to find out when you might be available to join one or more of these calls. Thank you for being with us, Hannah.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. So now I'm going to turn it over to Allison, who's going to talk quickly about some basics of change management. And then we will wrap up and get you out of here on time. So.
All right, awesome. Well, I'll be fast because this is a very high level overview of the kinds of things that we think about when we're working with colleges and access-oriented universities that are doing comprehensive large-scale student success work like Guided Pathways. And this is about kind of attending to the human beings in the work. And so whereas the SOA is about the practices and the things you do and the structures, the things that we worry about, and the places where we see change fall apart in practice is around the human side of change. And so Jenny gave me the epic challenge of saying, okay, in 5 minutes, what can you say in 5 minutes that's useful to folks? So there are 3 huge buckets of ideas, and I think there is going to be, particularly on the third one, a set of subsequent, hopefully, opportunities to dig into that a little bit more. But the 3 things that I want to focus on here are sort of recognizing the moment and recognizing where people are in the moment. The crisis continues. People are tired. The feeling of having rallied heroically on behalf of your students in the early parts of the crisis is waning for a lot of folks, and people are tired. There's no end in sight for the challenges, uncertainty. Living for this long in a state of uncertainty is really hard on the human brain and on the human heart. And so, we always preach listening first, that meeting people where they are and giving a little bit of space to how are you doing? How are things? How are you feeling in general before digging into the work, and the practical things that you need to address can be really helpful for creating the kind of communication and openness that people need. I will tell you, and it's sort of surprising, but now I'm absolutely sure that it is what I'm seeing from work with institutions in about 12 states right now. They need to be asked how they're doing, and they need a minute to talk about their work and the experience of COVID on how they think about their work, their institution, themselves. That kind of space is enormously helpful. Last week we were conducting interviews with mid-level leaders at institutions on the academic and student services side of the house, and asking questions like, how has COVID impacted your view of your student success priorities? Where do you see just very broad questions. And I was feeling guilty about asking people to take time to reflect on that because we had to get down to work. And across the board, people were saying, I really appreciate the opportunity to even be asked how I'm doing, because we are so busy doing that nobody is asking each other how they're actually doing. And not only do we need to be asked how we're doing, we need space to say how we're doing. And your job as mentors, or as anybody dealing with human beings in complex environments, it's not your job to fix it or make it better, but to be present for people, to listen carefully, and to say things like, that sounds really hard, is enormously helpful for humans. So that is something that, we preach it always, but it's really important here. All right. I'm going to get to the mindset shifts thing next. Actually, let's do that, because the next 2 things that I want to talk about are sort of just for you all to keep in mind, the undergirding basic fundamental mindset shifts entailed in large-scale student success work that make change and leading change and supporting change so difficult, and also why then it's really helpful. You can just roll it all out, Jenny. Sorry, I probably had some weird animation in here. Okay, so sorry, this is a lot of text. On the left-hand side is like when you hear a lot of talk about large-scale equity-focused student success work, and being clear for yourselves about what it means. What is large-scale? And Hannah just talked about it, sort of what does scale mean? All students and all programs, right? Large-scale, whole college, these are terms that you hear in Guided Pathways work. Student success, kind of like equity focused. What we don't hear a lot about is how profoundly countercultural the work is. So for us, we kind of ground ourselves in, large scale means moving beyond boutique programs. You know this stuff. You are steeped in Guided Pathways, so you know what large scale means. Equity focus for us increasingly means an absolutely crystal clear and evolving understanding of the roots of structural inequity, systemic racism, and the long-standing complicity of higher education in raising artificial barriers for students from historically marginalized and persistently minoritized communities. So this is what makes this work fundamentally countercultural, is that higher education and our institutions, even community colleges, were not actually designed to serve the students that you are called to serve and that we absolutely have to serve effectively. Nobody knows this better than you as practitioners, but it is meeting people where they are in this work, means being clear about, for yourselves and together, what you mean by equity focused, and that is having a strong, firm footing in the origins of persistent, systemic racial inequities. Okay, and then that's what makes all of this countercultural, right? Is that to do large-scale student success work, to do guided pathways work, it is in fact profoundly countercultural, and that means that you have to embrace a set of ideas that are totally different from the ones that dominate spoken and unspoken norms of practice. And this is even if you've been doing this work forever. And so for us, there are a set of 5 fundamental mindset shifts that don't happen overnight, and people need a path and an opportunity in the course of doing their day-to-day work on their practices, on their work of guided pathways, of reflecting on where they are culturally in these things. So to what extent is that sort of sorting instinct? A faculty member said to me recently, I feel like I was positioned by my discipline to be the goalie protecting the ivory tower. And now I recognize that my job is actually to support, to like open the gates and to make it possible for people to get through. And that's very different than what I was trained to believe higher education was about. Again, everybody talks about being, student ready instead of expecting students to be ready, but what actually does that mean in terms of a fundamental kind of shift in mindset and change of heart about how you look at the sources of problems, how you think about students' abilities, how you think about institutional responsibilities? Again, one of the things that's hardest for us as a culture in this country is to let go of the myth of meritocracy. We want to tell ourselves and believe that people get where they are by virtue of their hard work, and that is belied by everything from the founding of this nation to the structures that we have created persistently for people along race and class lines. And so helping people, but it is hard to let go of that and to shift to another way of thinking. These are the things, again, from blaming K-12, from blaming faculty, blaming advisors, advisors blaming administration, to what is my role in this, what's my part of this, also very, very difficult mindset shifts. And then this one shows up most, this best intentions one shows up everywhere. The place I see it most consistently is in Dev Ed reform, that for decades, incredibly dedicated, hardworking, passionate, student-focused faculty and staff were doing what they thought were the right things, but they were doing them in broken systems and structures and with mechanisms and strategies that it turned out were raising, not lowering, artificial barriers to students. And so it is really hard to let go of the idea that the thing that you've been doing, that you've poured your heart into, might somehow be flawed or need to be changed, or smuggling in structural racism or perpetuating the system that you're trying to dismantle. And so these are huge things that people need a longer term trajectory to internalize and deal with. And so part of leading change and part of supporting institutions is creating space for people to walk that journey, to walk those journeys over time. All right, so now that's very highfalutin. Those are a bunch of ideas. There are a bunch of strategies and practices, but the thing that, the last thing here, and I think Jenny, you were saying that there'll be another opportunity to dig more into this. Okay, so this is gonna be super fast, and this is gonna be, there'll be more on this specifically. We are finding that when you are faced with overwhelming, huge challenges and you have a set of priorities, you have a set of goals, you've got your practices that you want to implement, you kind of know the things you need to be doing, but it is a complicated organization with its context, its history, all of these things, that, and particularly under these circumstances, that short-term improvement cycles aimed at helping people take big, complex problems, break them down into bite-sized pieces that you can see progress on, that people can work on together in the near term, that are aligned to longer-term goals, is enormously helpful for accelerating the pace and improving the quality of collaborative problem solving. There are lots of different approaches to this. Many of you are probably familiar with PDSA cycles, Plan, Do, Study, Act. improvement cycles. There's lots of different approaches to this. We have a very stripped down approach that we take that is designed specifically to support work in higher ed reform on guided pathways, dev ed redesign, transfer specifically. And there are a couple of components to it. There's a thing, unfortunately, there's a little bit of jargon that we get through very quickly that we will when I get to be with you again. A driver diagram is a way for facilitating a conversation with people that forces them to get down to root causes and to the shared base in which they stand about what are the core challenges we're trying to address. And then you lift, and it's a sort of a facilitator and a mentor's friend, these kinds of processes, because you can work the process and it gives you a structure to keep yourself safe, essentially, as a facilitator or a mentor, and to hold people gently accountable for agreeing to and, in fact, moving work forward together. So driver diagrams help distill complicated conversations for teams into very specific, concrete, shared understanding of root causes. And then the creation of short-term improvement cycles. We use 90-day plans. You can use 120-day plans. I'm in the middle of running a sprint on a 30-day plan right now, but it's sort of 3 sections of work that a group agrees to do. Very, very simple template and process. It can, when you first encounter this, it can feel like, oh no, another thing. But as soon as you actually start using it to work with teams and humans, it becomes a structure for people to do work that it turns out they are longing to do together, are required to continuously do together, but often we leave meetings and it's like, well, what happened? I don't know. We had a good conversation, or now I'm back into the next set of priorities that somebody threw at me. So it helps people keep some focus on core work to be done amid all of the crap that's flying at you all the time when you're in an institution. So that's the general gist, is like sort of highest level, meet people where they are and listen and show empathy and grace and patience and presentness. Understand that the road that people need to travel with respect to the mindset shifts is a long one and it's emotionally difficult. And they're doing this under really hard circumstances personally and professionally. And then use really practical, really light, really easy to use tools to actually support progress. And there's much more to say about that, but I'll say it later. That was a lot, and it was super fast. I'm sorry. Was that what you wanted, Jenny?
Exactly what I wanted. Thank you so much, Allison.
Okay.
I am so excited, and as I'm thinking about you saying this and thinking about what the work we're going to do to put together the next part, what I want to say to you as a group, as mentors, is, you know, this is the work that we do at the Center for Student Success, that I know that you are doing on your campuses as in more kind of targeted initiatives that are targeted to what your areas of practice. And I'm really excited to invite all of you who I know have so much to contribute into this kind of larger work. And so I'm excited that we will do, you know, we will dig down into what it means to really support people in this kind of work. And I think, you know, you hopefully will come away with tools that not only will you be able to use as you are mentoring others at other institutions, but that you'll be able to use in your own work at your institutions that you do every day. So thank you. Thanks to Allison for that quick overview, and more to come. Future opportunities. So here we go. Yeah, deeper dive on analyzing, you know, conducting and analyzing the SOA calls with Hannah, a change management facilitation workshop with Allison, probably later in the fall, early in the winter. Some equity workshops with our friends at I forgot to mention them as a partner, at the National Center for Inquiry and Improvement, Rob Johnstone and Priya Chaplot, and CCRI, Katie Kovacic, who is not with us today, but is our kind of our mentor in this mentoring work. We will be doing some focused work on that this fall coming up in October and November. And then there are some opportunities for you as mentors within the Student Success Center Network community of practice. And so there's in addition to the mentors that completed the training last year, we're going to be making some of those training modules available to everybody, and also membership in the community of practice. And I think JFF is really still constructing those opportunities themselves. And so my understanding of them is as of yet imperfect, but when I understand what's available for you, then I will be passing that on to you as quickly as possible. They did mention that there was a possibility to have more people go through sort of the national training without the in-person aspect that we did in 2018 and 19 for some new mentors. So there will be more. I see that Katie is posting the questions from the Twitter, the upcoming Twitter chat. You can also find those on our Twitter feed. Actually, you will be finding those on our Twitter feed beginning tomorrow, that I have them ready to post.
Thanks, Jenny. And I don't think I said this deliberately, but I did put it in the chat. If any of you are planning to join us next week, we do this Zoom thing where we talk about the chat as it's happening. Several of you already sent me a private message and I added you to the calendar invitation, and I'm so excited that you're going to join us. But if anyone else wants to, I don't think I actually said those words, so I wanted to make sure you knew that we do that. We discuss the chat as it happens in live time. And one of the pro tips, which I just put into the chat, is if you have time to prepare some answers in advance, it will make the tweet chat less stressful for you. So I did put the questions in the chat. They were, I don't remember if they were in this slide, but as Jenny said, they'll be on our Twitter profile starting tomorrow as well.
Yep. And we like to call it the Zoom where it happens. So please plan to join us in the Zoom where it happens if you can next Tuesday. And we'll be doing this. We do this. We're I think going to be doing this for all of our Twitter chats. So that will always be an opportunity for you. So watch your email for invitation to the Canvas site Mentor 101. If you've already been with us, you're already in it. But if you have not joined it yet, you should have received an invitation. I will kind of check back with you by email to see if you did. Sign up Genius Links for the SOA validation calls. I want to do quarterly-ish touch points in addition to any other workshops that will be more targeted. So I will send a doodle poll for when those might be available to get all of us together. November, March, and June. And then more information about these dedicated workshops, which will be available to everybody. And I totally understand that you are all very busy people, and your busyness is part of what makes you attractive in this work. So I want you to know that you're not expected to participate in all of these things, but I do want to make them available. And the quarterly-ish touch points will be short and not. They will be not as long as and contentful as this meeting, which is why we're going to have the dedicated workshops. But I do want to sort of create a network with you people as mentors, so that you do get a chance to get to know each other and that we talk a little bit about the work that we're doing. But otherwise, in terms of the dedicated workshops, the training opportunities, participation in the SOA calls, which we hope you'll do, participation in the Twitter chats. Obviously, this is all predicated on your ability to be available for this or that you are interested in it. So that's all that I have. That is all the content from this meeting. It's 3:28. We have 2 minutes. If anybody has any questions or discussion. Wow, there's a lot here. I didn't realize when I was putting these slides together. So anybody have any questions or thoughts, anything that you need to share that you haven't shared in the chat? Or
I think Erica has prepared a monologue, if I recall.
I thought she was going to sing.
I also thought she had prepared a performance of sorts.
Yeah.
You are ganging up on me. This isn't the first time today.
I was going to say, Jenny and I are going to be fired, so good luck, everyone, working with Erica.
Much quieter than both of us, though. There you go. And maybe not as many bad jokes. Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Jenny.
Appreciate you joining us, and watch your email and enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon. We will be repeating this session for the people that were not able to join us. So if you had to miss some, feel free to let me know, and I'll send you the link if you want to join us tomorrow as well. Thanks. And there'll be a recording.
Thank you guys for all your hard work. This is so exciting, and I'm so happy to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for all of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Jenny, I wanted to let you know that Chuck and Janice retired on me
What?
on like Monday.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Sean. Oh, wow. Well, you know, oh.
Yeah, they the college offered a buyout to anyone that had 20 years of continuous experience, and I thought Chuck would take it because he was planning to retire in January, but then Janice surprised me and took it too.
Oh, so you're staffing madly.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, so we're down to 4 for right now, but
Hey, wow.
yeah. So there's not many of us left. It's kind of getting weird.
Yeah, really. Okay. Well, feel free to reach out if I can help you at all.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. See ya.
All right. Thanks. Bye, everybody.